a mysterious sound. If heard, the person reaches such a state within 3 days that they eventually pray for their own death. The ending and the twist of this movie won't just give you thrills. It will literally play with your brain. Today's movie is The Empty Man. A group of 4 friends, Greg, Paul, Fiona, and Ruthie, are trekking. Their passion is traveling to different corners of the world. After crossing remote mountains, they stop to rest in an extraordinary place nestled in the foothills of the Himalayas. Suddenly, Paul becomes entranced by the faint sound of a flute coming from afar, which no one but him can hear. Following the sound, Paul suddenly falls into a hole. Everyone is shocked by this sudden accident because no sound is coming from Paul. So Greg decides to go down by tying a rope. Upon descending into the hole, he is quite surprised because the place is vast. Instead of a hole, it could be called a cave. As Greg cautiously moves forward, he sees Paul sitting in a meditative posture in front of a massive, inhuman skeleton. Greg easily realizes that although this giant skeleton looks human-like, it is by no means human. But why is Paul sitting like this? When Greg gets closer, he hears Paul whispering, "If you touch me, you will die." Paul stares spellbound, suddenly bursts into tears, and then immediately falls silent, staring fixedly at the skeleton. Greg somehow manages to get him out and carries him on his shoulders. Greg keeps the whole matter secret from the girls because he cannot believe what he saw there. The cold is increasing. The freezing wind is piercing through their jackets and shivering their bones. After walking for a while, they see an empty house at the foot of the mountain and decide to spend the night there. Paul hasn't spoken a single word since then. He lies there like a stone. Curiously, there isn't a single injury mark on his body. Everyone's concern grows. He needs to be taken to a hospital as soon as possible, but in this hostile weather, traveling 5 miles to a hospital is nearly impossible. So they have to stay there for the night. As night falls, the snowfall intensifies. Ruthie is sitting beside Paul. After bringing Paul here, Ruthie found a small flute in his hand that she had never seen before. Thinking nothing of it, she blows the flute, and instantly a strange sound echoes. She doesn't pay much attention to it. Exhaustion brings sleep to her eyes. But when she wakes up, she hears the sound of someone walking around the house with a thud-thud noise. However, after a while, the sound stops on its own, and Ruthie doesn't give it much thought. The next morning turns out to be even more terrifying. It is snowing heavily outside. They give Ruthie food, and the two of them go outside to see if any arrangements can be made. Paul's condition remains the same. Ruthie looks through the window and sees someone standing in the snowstorm. When Ruthie moves forward to help, the human-like figure slowly retreats. Then, it suddenly rushes toward her, and Ruthie, terrified, runs inside and leans against the door. Thuds hit the door one after another. When Ruthie regains her senses, she hears Greg shouting to open the door. Ruthie lets them in and informs them that she saw someone just a while ago. Seeing her state, Greg doesn't press further. Unfortunately, they have to stay there tonight as well. In the dead of night, a strange scene unfolds. Paul is whispering something in Ruthie's ear. When they wake up in the morning, Paul is gone. Following his footprints in the snow, they find Paul sitting in a meditative posture in front of that bridge, blowing the flute. This time, Greg loses his patience. But as Paul looks at him with blank eyes, Ruthie suddenly stabs Greg with a knife and pushes Greg and Fiona off the mountain. After staring blankly at Paul for a while, she jumps off the mountain herself. James is a former detective by profession, but he now works in a small shop. While paying the bill at a restaurant during lunch, he shows an old birthday coupon, and the restaurant staff wishes him a happy birthday. But today is not his birthday. In a park, James meets a teenage girl named Amanda. A big part of James's life is joined by his nightmares because, a few years ago, James's family died in a car accident. Since then, James has been blaming himself for that incident. A few days after that, Amanda's father also passed away. She never had a very good relationship with her family, so James became like a guardian to her. Amanda says that to distract her mind from the sorrows of daily life, she is practicing a type of meditation. According to this meditation, If multiple people think about a specific object or purpose together, it will manifest into reality. Hearing such foolish talk, James doesn't give it much importance. Shortly after this incident, James suddenly receives a call from Amanda's mother. Quail, Amanda is missing. When James goes to Amanda's house with the police, he sees written on the mirror in blood, "The empty man made me do it." After collecting some evidence and receiving the forensic report, the police inform James that the blood on the mirror is not Amanda's but that of some animal. From talking to the police, James realizes they have no real interest in the matter. Usually, in such cases, the victim is never found due to their negligence. So, James takes responsibility for the matter himself. In Amanda's diary, James finds a paper from the Pontifex Institute, on the back of which Tulpa was written. The pictures stuck on the wall of the diary increased the mystery further. Asking Quail, he learns that a few days ago, Amanda was crying in class, but she didn't tell her the reason. Consequently, James begins to interrogate Amanda's high school friends one by one. He learns a strange thing from a girl named Devara. The empty man. This story has been circulating in their group for a few days. Initially thought to be a hoax, her assumption proved wrong. Because 2 days ago, Amanda, Liza, Meyer, Duncan, and Brandon were hanging out at the rock bridge. Seeing an empty bottle lying there, Amanda jokingly picks it up and tells them about the empty man. She says if you find an empty bottle in a dark, deserted, and damp place and blow into it while summoning the empty man, he actually comes. On the first day, you will hear the empty man and think of him. On the second day, he will follow you. And on the third day, he will find you. Hearing her, everyone blows into the bottle and mocks Amanda. When Amanda sits alone in the middle of the bridge and blows the whistle while summoning the empty man, a sudden gust of wind is followed by a strange silence. At that moment, a sharp whistling sound comes from the other end of the bridge. Feeling that someone is gradually rushing toward them, they run away in fear. The very next day, she sees Amanda at the mall whispering something into Brandon's ear. After finishing her story, Devara becomes distracted, gives James Brandon's address, and leaves. When James goes to Brandon and Liza's house, he finds out they are both missing. Entering Liza's house, he finds no one there, and an Egyptian show is playing on the TV where someone says, "The god Adam is coming." James also finds a Pontifex Institute prospectus in Liza's room. Additionally, the dead body of her pet dog was lying in the garden. This matter made James think deeply because every friend of Amanda, except Devara, is missing. James then goes to the deserted rock bridge to investigate. Right in the middle lay that empty bottle left behind by Amanda and her friends. James blows into the bottle and stands waiting for a while. Suddenly, the sounds of birds and crickets mysteriously stop. He hears a thumping sound coming from inside a manhole. When James goes down to check, he is shocked. Hanging there were the bodies of every one of Amanda's friends. And written there was, "The empty man made me do it." In the evening, the police arrive and recover all the bodies. James's suspicion is now entirely on the Pontifex Institute. Meanwhile, as night falls, supernatural things begin to happen to Devara. She has hallucinations as if someone is trying to kill her. But in reality, Devara ends her own life. Notably, the figure Devara saw before her death bears a striking resemblance to the figure Ruthie saw. The officer calls James to the station, informs him about Devara, and tells him about an incident. 3 weeks ago, in Maryville, a mother had fed her newborn baby to stray dogs. When asked why, she said the baby was constantly whispering something in her ear, and that woman had also written on the wall in blood, "The empty man," just like what was found in Devara's bathroom. Truth be told, there are many things in this outer world that have no scientific explanation. Returning home, James searches Google and finds some disturbing information about the Pontifex Society. It is a secret group of ancient Tibetans who believe in occult practices and various ideologies. This group has been established and dissolved many times throughout history. In 1991, in Egypt, the bodies of 6 Pontifex members were recovered. Initial investigations revealed that they had killed each other. And most surprisingly, they wanted to bring a tulpa into reality through a ritual. James remembers seeing the word Tulpa in Amanda's diary. Researching Tulpa reveals the most controversial information. Tulpa, a mind-made body. According to a leader of the Pontifex group, by combining thought, concentration, and time, it is possible to bring a tulpa into reality. I will share many unknown facts about the mystery of the tulpa at the very end of the story. Quail suddenly meets James, and James provides her with mental support, asking her to stay at his house for the night. In the middle of the night, James suddenly wakes up. It feels as if someone is walking with heavy steps outside the door. Gathering courage, he goes outside only to find the front door open and no one there. The next day, James goes to the city's Pontifex Institute. While the society's leader, Arthur, mentions the empty man during a lecture, James meets him personally to ask about it. Arthur says the empty man is a type of meditation, or one could say, the external manifestation of a single idea. Just as a human survives through the living world and the atmosphere, all human consciousness survives through the infinite void. The one who helps awaken the subconscious mind in various ways is called the empty man. Of course, James finds these words illogical and focuses more on finding Amanda. James hides and follows a few members to their secret meeting room, where he observes several people in a strange meditative state. Delving deeper into this mystery, James reaches an underground passage where some members were together summoning the empty man by blowing into bottles. However, James is caught and kicked out. Leaving there, he meets the member he had questioned about Amanda in the conference room. The boy didn't say anything then, but now reveals that Amanda used to come here. However, those who completely surrender themselves to this are sent to a secret location for training. So, Amanda might be found at the Pontifex camp in the forests of Off-Route 32. Accordingly, James sets out to find Amanda there. Reaching the location in the forest, James sees two cabins. In one, he finds files of Amanda and every one of her friends, containing all their details. But the strangest thing was a blank file kept there in James's name. In another adjacent cabin, James finds a collection of various Pontifex Society VIP tapes where they are performing strange experiments on humans. As evening falls while checking these, James notices a light glowing deep in the forest. Going there, he witnesses a horrific sight. Several people are running around a fire. Sometimes they stop and chant mantras in unison. At one point, as the flames rise straight toward the sky, James's head begins to spin. However, regaining his composure, as he tries to leave the scene, they all chase him. He barely escapes with his life in his car. The next day, after submitting the collected files to the police and describing the events of the previous night, the police instead forbid him from interfering in the investigation. James realizes that whatever needs to be done, he must do it himself. For self-defense, he collects a gun and necessary items and warns Quail about Pontifex. Just then, he receives a call from an unknown person and hears the sound of someone muttering mantras. James realizes they are not safe. So, leaving Quail at her relative's house and promising to bring Amanda back, James returns home. But waking up from a nightmare in the middle of the night, he hears the doorbell. Coming out with a bat and opening the door, James is shocked, because in front of him lies the same teddy bear that was at the camp in the forest. In the morning, James follows the boy from Pontifex and sees him secretly bringing a few members in a car to St. Louis Hospital. James follows them and sees a man in a cabin lying in a semi-comatose state on medical support, with every member surrounding him and praying. Leaving there, James kidnaps the boy and asks about the hospital. He says that patient is acting as a messenger for the forces of the outer world or the outer gods, and they are just receivers. Things people see in dreams during high fever or in déjà vu are supposedly all predetermined. Every 1,000 years, an empty man is needed to transmit the message of the outer gods to Earth. After finishing his sentence, the boy starts laughing like a maniac, and James leaves him there. At night, James secretly enters the Pontifex Society's archive hall. When he gathers the manifestation file of the St. Louis patient, he finds a file on himself. It contained records of every detail of his life and his family, along with photos. Besides the birthday coupon he used a few days ago, there was also a nude photo of him. Understanding nothing, James goes straight to St. Louis Hospital. Asking the nurse about the patient, he learns he was brought here 23 years ago. Although no one came to see him for a long time, lately, many people have started coming. Even now, someone is in his cabin. James enters the patient's cabin and is stunned, because Amanda was there taking care of the patient. When James calls Quayle to inform her about finding Amanda, Quayle strangely doesn't recognize James and hangs up. At that moment, Amanda says she is becoming weak. An ordinary person does not have the capacity to carry this infinite power. So, now a new replacement is needed. And here, the biggest twist is revealed. Because this patient is none other than Paul. Amanda says the empty man uses a human body like an empty vessel. After 500 years, the empty man had possessed Paul. But later, it was not possible for them to wait so much time. So, due to the shortage of time, a new body is needed for the empty man. And that is James himself. Actually, James is not a human, but rather a tulpa whom they created only 3 days ago. Using a tulpa for the empty man is like a new experiment for them. When James cannot believe this, Amanda says that 3 days ago, on the 7th, the restaurant staff celebrated his birthday. Every memory of the guilt of losing his family, it was all created by them. Now, let me explain the whole tulpa concept very simply and briefly as to what Amanda was trying to tell him. A tulpa is a type of mental entity that a person creates inside their mind through their imagination, concentration, and belief. The concept of tulpa comes from ancient Tibetan Buddhism. In their language, tulpa or thulpa means a thought form. Tibetan lamas would sit in deep meditation and combine mind, thought, and imagination to create one or more entities or tulpas, whom they would guide and even speak with. This process of creating a tulpa is called tulpamancy, and those who participate are called tulpamancers. To give a simple example, many children have an imaginary friend they play with, talk to, and tell stories to. Although no one else can see them, the child believes they truly exist. Let me give another example. Suppose a writer has been writing a story about a fictional character for many years. One character in that story is Rohan. Every day, the writer imagines how Rohan walks, how he speaks, or how he reacts when he falls in love. Over a long period, Rohan becomes like a real person in the writer's mind. And this is a tulpa. Ancient Tibetan lamas could create these tulpas in reality, which has been mentioned throughout various times. For instance, Alexandra David Neal, a Belgian-French explorer, often referenced in paranormal literature, shared her experience of creating a tulpa in her book. Additionally, there are many mentions of tulpa incidents across YouTube, Reddit, and the internet. Leaving aside the spiritual aspects, modern psychology has a name for this: autonomous hallucination. So, hopefully, it's clear now that in the movie, the members of the Pontifex Society created James as a tulpa to give the empty man a new body. The members of this society have referred to the empty man in connection with the outer gods. So, what are these outer gods? If you watch my video carefully, you will see hints given in various places in the movie. First, when James goes to Amanda's friend Liza's house, a line can be heard during an Egyptian show on TV. God Adam is coming. So, who is this god Adam? Adam is the most ancient and first god of ancient Egypt. He is called the self-created one, who created himself. He emerged from the infinite void and created the cosmic order. The infinite void is that primal canvas upon which the universe, time, light, and life were created. Apart from Egyptian and Greek mythology, the infinite void is also mentioned in the Hindu Rigveda. God Adam is also imagined as a human-shaped god, and both the forms of creation and destruction exist within him. To bring the negative entity of God Adam to earth, a vessel was needed, which was Paul. And the one who was before him was the skeleton Paul's group saw in the Ura Valley of Bhutan. And now his current vessel is James. The Pontifex Society usually targeted people who were mentally weak to make them members. For this reason, God Adam chose Paul from the entire group to bring his negative entity to earth because of the katadak, referring to the marks or state, in Paul's hand, indicating his weak mentality. On the other hand, James also considered himself guilty for the death of his family. In the final scene of the movie, The likeness of what James is shown to be possessed by is somewhat like the black elder god Nyarlathotep from the Cthulhu mythos by cosmic horror creator H.P. Lovecraft. He is called the messenger of the outer gods, who walks among men. Lovecraft himself described him as the dark version of the Egyptian god Adam. Finally, it is shown that after James becomes possessed, he kills Paul, because now he is the empty man. So this was the story of the movie The Empty Man. How did you like the video? Do let me know in the comments. And those who want to know more about cosmic horror, watch this video on the left. And those who are new to the channel, subscribe and stay with us.